When Russia's Vladimir Putin first invaded Ukraine in 2022, many foreign policy experts predicted back then that the war would only end with Ukraine giving up land and getting some sort of security guarantee. Well, more than 3 years and 1 million casualties and hundreds of billions of dollars later, that could well turn out to be the case. The White House tells NewsNation that a highly anticipated meeting between Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Zelensky is expected to happen, they say, within the next 2 weeks. That source tells us that the sit-down is likely to happen someplace in Europe. Budapest, Hungary, and Geneva, Switzerland have both been floated as possible locations, as long as they're both fine with hosting an international war criminal named Vladimir Putin. It comes as NATO's 32 defense chiefs held a virtual meeting today to discuss security guarantees that could end Putin's unprovoked war. Part of the goal is to make sure Russia can never invade Ukraine again. The chair of NATO's military committee wrote they had a great candid discussion and that they are united in their support for a durable peace. We did not, however, get any specifics on what, if anything, they agreed to, and it is still unclear what the U.S. role would be in those plans. President Trump has made it clear that there will be no American troops on the ground in Ukraine. Instead, he is signaling that the U.S. could provide air support. Now, Ukraine is not a member of NATO, but that may turn out to be a distinction without much difference. The European leaders who met with Trump at the White House on Monday suggested that Ukraine should still get some kind of Article 5 type security. That's not likely to go over well with the isolationist wing of the MAGA base, and so far it is definitely not going over well in Russia. Putin's top diplomat is warning that any talks about security guarantees that do not involve the Kremlin are a road to nowhere.
We cannot agree with the fact that it is now proposed to resolve collective security issues without the Russian Federation. This will not work. I'm sure that in the West, and above all in the United States, they understand perfectly well that seriously discussing security issues without the Russian Federation is a utopia, a road to nowhere.
Keep in mind the security guarantees are to prevent Russia from invading again. Russia wants a seat at that table to determine how to stop itself from invading. Let's go right now to NewsNation's Robert Sherman, live for us in Ukraine. Robert, this big NATO meeting today happened after Russia launched an overnight drone attack right near the NATO border. Is Putin gaining? I mean, what's the strategy here? Is he just trying to grab as much land as he can before finally some sort of settlement happens?
Well, that's the thinking here from the Ukrainian side, Elizabeth, and the ramifications of that are certainly being felt outside of Ukraine here at this hour, with NATO member states now totally on edge. Even still within the last couple of hours, we've heard sirens going off here once again. You look at these overnight strikes that happened here in Ukraine. Well, that caused the Romanians to put NATO jets in the air for fear that some of these drones fired by Russia would enter their airspace. Well, that was not the case in Romania. It was the case in Poland, where they say what's believed to be a Russian Shahed drone ended up making impact there, causing an explosion in eastern Poland. You had Poland's defense minister coming out today condemning the Russians, saying this, and I quote, "Once again, we are dealing with a provocation by the Russian Federation with a Russian drone. We are dealing in a crucial moment when discussions about peace in Ukraine are underway." As diplomacy is ramping up, you are not seeing these strikes from Russia subsiding. In fact, if you look at this analysis that was done by the Kyiv Independent, which was published here just a short while ago, they found since August 15th, which was when that Alaska summit took place, through August 20th, you had over 30 civilians killed, 140, more than 140 injured. The two deadliest days, the night before President Zelensky was at the White House and the night after. That's why there's such a push here in order to get these diplomatic wheels turning. The Ukrainians say they're ready to go, but Russia's foreign minister once again saying today they're not ready to commit to a time or a date. Elizabeth?
Yeah, and that drone attack, it's worth remembering, Poland is part of NATO. That is a NATO ally saying it was under attack by this Russian drone. Robert Sherman reporting live from Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.